It is what it is, right?
It is what it is. What I
There you go. That's all that matters.
had in the class that
I had to proctor an exam in the class of 50 lecture hall at Purdue. And I didn't realize how big that room was. And I walk in, I'm like, am I gonna watch all these people?
Okay, I will reconvene the Mountain County Council for October 28th, 2024.
I like that.
It wasn't me, Carol.
That was me this time. That was silence it, I forgot.
You didn't make your announcement.
I did not.
Yeah, you did. Remind me. Sure, Paul. Things gonna get well.
Well, only reason why is the LTX.
Oh, okay.
So it's not that I can't.
Yeah. Okay. First on the agenda, we have Architectura invoice number 4636 for $22,900.
My name is Michael Connolly, president of Architectura Corporation. We had submitted an invoice through Envoy, the BOT management firm, in June of this year. They paid other invoices, but they did not pay that invoice. That I believe the council had said that all invoices had to be turned in by the month of June on the meeting of May 13th. The reason we're submitting that invoice directly to you is commissioners have approved the payment of that invoice. However, we need your authorization to approve that final invoice for the work we did for the initial annex and the courthouse renovations first phases. There's other copies of information you need to confirm this. I got a copy of that invoice as well as some more detailed explanation of the timing of the events that occurred up to them.
When was that work done?
The work was actually done in March and April of 2024.
Is that part of the contract that the commissioner signed?
Yes.
Any questions?
I mean, it was done in the time frame which we indicated.
And they submitted it to Envoy. It was Envoy that didn't submit it to us, correct? So.
Yes.
So I'd make a motion that we go ahead and pay that.
How's that out of the ARP funds?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to, yes.
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 I'll second that.
That to my motion. You're not to say that.
Okay. Discussion.
Most of that work was environmental, wasn't it?
The
courthouse.
some of it was done for analysis of the asbestos and the lead paint, both in the courthouse and in the annex, but also the survey work of the building exterior here for the courthouse as well as the annex. The bigger part of the survey work was really the inside and outside of the courthouse. We did a 3D survey, which actually gives you pictures of all the walls inside and outside, all the details in the building. Certainly that becomes your property once we take care of the invoice, and be glad to pass that along to the appropriate persons.
Who has that? Who has that contract? Does the commissioners have all that?
You should have all of that information. We had the contract directly with the surveyors and the testing company for the environmental testing, or we paid them, but we're happy to turn all that information over to commissioners and council.
The work that you did, that's stuff we can use for the future if and when they decide to do something here.
You decided to move ahead with this courthouse or other renovation work, we'll be glad to provide all of that information and sort of copy.
Thank you.
Ready for the vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, we have, evidently wondered Jim at the grandpa yet.
I think November 5th is when
He's
she was
trying to
going.
get stuff done, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it is a little.
Now you gotta push something.
Yeah, to get stuff done, beat the rains.
Had to push to get those beans out.
Okay, we have a transfer of county general plan commission from training to attorney fees of $2,900. Is there a motion for that transfer?
I make the motion.
Second. Jim, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 6-0. Then we have E911 next generation grant. It's on here, I don't know.
I'm not sure. I left it on there because I wasn't sure where we were at on that. You've already presented it, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So just mark that off.
What is it? You know, what is it?
It's
What is
for
it
the,
mean?
for the addresses that the state has done to have the addresses the same way across the state, especially the center lines, is to make everything more tighter. So instead of, if it's on the line, it doesn't go to Tippecanoe County and transfers back to Fountain or Warren County. So it'll all be in that area. And if there's money left over, then they'll be doing the boundaries. So they've worked on it for a few years now and finally got awarded to it.
Well, I think already it's budget option because we need to find out. You sent out an email, I could read it on my phone, I didn't have a chance to print it.
So
What's the difference? Bob,
there is, but I just talked with Kent. Due to the cost where it's at, anything over $150,000, we have to put it out in the bid process. So therefore, I'll tell you, I emailed him and asked him. He said between $50,000 and $1 and $150,000, there has to be a request quote process. It doesn't necessarily have to be publicated, but it has to be emailed to 3 different companies of the same type of equipment. So therefore, the programs that I provided to you, we're not able to do that. We would have to put it out on bid process, kind of like we do with an ambulance. And also, with that being said, what I originally quoted you, the 2 cots, the 2 monitors, and the power load, we're not going to be able to do that either because that's over $150,000 too. We'll have to bid it out. So
all 3 of those possibilities have to be.
If you bought them separately, it still has.
You could buy them separately. I'm understanding, and Taylor might be able to enlighten on this. I think if you're under that 50,000, so for example, if we bought power load system itself, I think it's like $28,000 or $29,000, you can do that. But as if you get over 50,000, I think you got to send out for quotes to 3 different companies, same product, and then you make your decision which one you go with.
Are there other companies that make them?
There is. They don't make, not necessarily the power load, but there's other companies that make COTS and do make monitors, but as does the power load itself, no. So you run into the risk of, if another company comes in, then you got to look at what we already have. You're going to have 2 or 3 different things in your vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hoping this morning we had some good news on Friday. The MS Plus program, he was able to make some changes. The original was what I sent you was $185,136. He got to looking. That was the preventive maintenance program was going to start day 1. All this comes with the 1-year warranty. So therefore, by moving the PMs to year 2, we had a savings and we went to $153,000 a year for 7 years, if we went that way.
Mhm.
And then obviously it probably would have changed up the 10-year program too. But due to the amount over 250,000, we'd have to bid it out.
So, and I think that's probably good. I mean, it may cost a little bit more, but I think it needs to be bid out and probably not done until after the first of the year, and have, since we're going to be 2 new commissioners, let them.
Could I make a recommendation, at least do one power load where we can have that and that 4th ambulance and then, which will be, I think, when we.
Well, I think we left
Left it.
16,500 under the defibrillator, 4550 under cot maintenance.
Which we can't touch that anyway, because if we don't do these programs, that's the preventive maintenance program on the defibrillator right now.
And then under equipment, we had $223,089. So that would cover.
Okay, so you're gonna leave that in there and leave that alone?
Well, it's in there right now.
Okay.
In there when we vote, so.
Okay.
And then that way. Guys.
Yeah,
This is for
we
next
can't do
year,
anything
but
with the programs
you're not gonna
until.
get that advertised and done.
No,
It's for the
no
next
way.
year
No.
anyway, and then new commissioners can.
I'll just have to wait till next year and do that with
Yeah.
them, because that it's gonna take too much time.
But let's leave that, I mean, my recommendation, leave it in. the budget.
Leave it in.
Okay.
Mhm.
You work with the commissioners somewhat. They want.
Did you, I mean, has anybody got questions on those programs? If everything was it pretty explanatory to you?
It was to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine, yeah.
And it's a lease own program, so you're leasing it, so you're basically, and the Flex Financial Company is within Stryker. It's basically a financial company within it. We would get the invoices directly from Stryker, but they work out within there. There is an annual percentage rate you pay, it's 2.86%.
I really like that. I like the Stryker program, I do, but my question to you, Garth, can we get by another year without?
The only one that's gonna be in question will be the 2 monitors that we have right now, they're the 2011s. They cannot no longer be included in the preventive maintenance program. They're obsolete. So when they come in and do preventive maintenance program, I will be charged an hourly rate for him to work on it, and then if there's any parts, then we'll put the dice on whether they have the parts or not.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yes, we have preventive maintenance program going on them right now. The other 4 monitors, we're still okay with those. The Lucas devices, they're going on the 5th year. So, yeah, I think we'll be okay. The monitors are what are in question. Would be what's in question.
On this 2.8% interest rate, is that for the 2 programs?
Yes.
So it's good for the 10 or the 7 year?
And the 7 year on there, you can write down that it would be, well, they're gonna change because as of November 1st, we'll have to take the price increase.
But then the next one doesn't come until April.
Possibly February. They say it's usually February 1st and October 1st. Typically when they do the price increases. So it's either they do 1 or 2 a year.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll just have to hold off until next year to do those programs.
Yeah.
And there's money that did, so whatever. Commissioners and the
I will. What we'll do is I'll start trying to put a bid process together and do what I do. Yeah, I'll work with them on that. And we get sent out. So that's what I had.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Garth.
Welcome.
Anybody else on anything before we start on the budget?
Jenny and Dan Hessler's here if you want to talk to them real quick.
Ian's not here yet.
Okay. Oh, that's right. He said he was going to be a little late. Yeah.
Okay. Well, some things I want to talk about on the budget. I talked about, I said that public safety, and we had over $1 million in requests. We're going to receive 806,000 next year. And I told all of you a few months ago that there was not going to be enough money in public safety, and that will be on the agenda for November. Colleen's going to request 250,000 so that we have enough, because it's mostly salaries and there's 3 payrolls in November. So
are you gonna put in for that 10,000 for that invoice you received this morning? Are you gonna include that in your additional?
so that would,
Council.
yeah. I mean, Commissioner, what's talking about, we got Amoresco sent a bill today for $10,000 and dated it June 1st. And just sent it to her today, and then or work done on what we have to. This invoice is for services associated with the facility condition assessment for the courthouse.
My guess is it's just like the fellow that was here. It was an envoy thing.
Oh, it's dated actually June 12th. And we said all of them in by June 1st, so. That'll go to commissioners first, and then it'll come to us. So,
and that will go into their next meeting.
okay, so back human capital development, we're actually from what we budgeted and what we'll have in there, there's going to be. We should have about $750,000 more in that fund than what we have budgeted for next year. So my recommendation to you guys is if you have any additionals next year, is take it out of human capital development instead of county general, because it's going to have a healthy fund next year. And same way with CEDAT, we're going to have you're going to have about $1.5 million more in that fund next year than what is appropriated. So between those 2 funds, you have anything that come up? I talked to Kelly about the 2026 will be a year to do another ambulance, because we do try to do it every other year. So maybe take that out of CEDAT cost of an ambulance of 2026.
What was the number on human capital?
About 750,000
Extra.
extra, yes. Because we should start the year with about 381,000, and we should collect. Now we should start the year with 661,000. We'll collect about 381,000 next year, and we got this budget. It was 127,000. So actually, I might be more 4,500,000 instead of 750 if we spend and rebid it this year, which I don't think it will be.
You're talking Coons Cat, right?
Human capital development. Public safety, we cut that. We should, we'll collect 806,000 next year, but there's always one time that they check back and they find out that they shorted us some years, so we always get a little extra money.
2 years.
Yeah. So on the budget, I think on that was 840,000. Public safety 800. So I think that will go through the LGF without any problem. And I've looked over the MVH restricted, MVH and local roads and streets and the Cume Bridge, and we shouldn't have any problem with our submittal on what we've done on those. So I think we're ready to vote. So our ordinance 2024 to have 4 ordinance for appropriation and tax rates. That's for everything except solid waste. So is there a motion to adopt as that presented?
Make the motion.
Or second? All those in favor?
Nice.
6-7. Now the tax rate. Okay, so motion on the tax rate is general fund 0.3496, reassessment 0.0541, Cume voting machine 0.005, health department 0.0076, Cume capital development 0.0333, for a total of 0.0549. No, I'm sorry, 0.5496.
Could you read those one more time, please?
Yep. So general 0.3496, reassessment 0.0541, Cume voting machines 0.005, Cume bridge 0.10, health department 0.0076, Cume capital development 0.0333, for a total of 0.5496. A motion to approve that tax rate. Yeah. Okay, Jeff. A second?
Yes.
Okay, Dale. Okay, all those in favor? So. You want this one, Tony?
Yeah.
I'm Dave.
All right, let's go over those rates again.
3496.
Those numbers tend to be over.
Yes, based on what our budgets are.
So I can compare these with what was posted.
Bridge.
And compare those
Okay.
on that amount of money, assessed valuation. Is that right? Is that how that works?
Yes.
Got it. I had 2 of them. Yep.
Your budget there was not even this year.
That was in 2023.
He didn't read them in order.
I know, that's what confused me. I'm like, oh my God, wait a minute, what?
Well, the health.
So it's gone up.
Right.
If you use that.
So this is the total of 0.5496. Yeah.
Okay, ordinance 2024-5, Fountain County Solid Waste Management District ordinance for appropriations and tax rates.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve that?
I'll make the motion.
Got one second?
Sure. I will.
Jeff?
Jeff.
All those in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Gateway submission of budget for 2024, motion to approve the submission of this 24 budget to the DLGF to the Gateway. Motion, Tom, second.
Yeah.
All in favor? 6.
Okay.
What was that solid waste again? Cause I have it here.
Okay.
I have it right here.
Solid waste is on under commissioners.
No, that's what I had.
I have wrote down
Keep
point
that.
6265
This
What
year.
is it?
last year. No, that's total papers. I know.
0.0231 is the tax rate for solid waste.
Point oh
Last year
two.
was 0.4640.
Okay.
Because we adopted that rate, doesn't mean we'll get that rate because the AV, I think, came in higher than what we had estimated our budget against, so.
Yeah, the DLGF is probably gonna change over more tax rates, they always do, but.
What'd you say the solid waste?
Well, they know best.
31.
So Colleen, I ran this off of Fountain County budget or on the finance yesterday, and the solid waste was like 0.0188, so that's old or what? I just wanna ask.
I don't have that here.
What the rate was for this
What's the rate, what?
Was that 23?
That is have 0.0188. And like I said, the AV is gonna come in higher than what we had estimated, so they won't be near that.
I'm good.
We always adopt around that area that we're adopting in, it's just a little bit higher this
And then
year.
they're gonna change it, so they're gonna look at our our assessed value went up 200 million.
So, yeah.
About 200 million, so I'm sure they're gonna change all of it, because we can only go up 4%. Next meeting is, remember, on Tuesday, November 12th, that's Monday's Tuesday at 9 AM.
What did I say?
There's two of them, there's two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Check. Yeah, you did the name on those others.
Oh, okay. Dr. Hessler. Hi.
Hi, Dr. Esler, how are you? It's going.
Okay, we adopted our budget. But I know you got some things. I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Holly, but the 338,000, we get only approved 48,000, but that's all that was advertised. So after the first of the year, they're gonna have to do an additional for that because we didn't know what those numbers were and she could only advertise what number she was given. So that was all that was. On the 338,000, so the council after the first year will have this, and then is it February?
Usually it's the end of January, February, before we can do that.
Okay. And that will be on the 338,000 and change then.
Right, because we did
okay.
Out of the county money,
330, yeah, 539.75 or something, I think, for one of those ones, but yes.
$323,066. Okay.
So that's with taking that insurance liability out of.
Okay. You want to present anything or?
I just came to see if you guys had questions. I put everything in the report that I sent to you. If you'd like to go over things, ask questions, fire away. Please do.
I will just give you an observation, which is for the council to just keep in mind. The 2020 budget for out of my county funds was 307,000, which Warren County paid 1/3 of that. So actually, taxpayer dollars was 207,000. For 2021, it was 216,000. 2022, it was 214,000. Then in 2023, when we dropped Warren County, the taxpayers paid 258,000. This year, it's 323,000. And we only collect from the taxpayers 115,000. So we are having to take $200,000 every year out of the one. Well, right now, at one time there was $1.5 million in the health department fund.
Yes, sir.
It's down to 1.1 million. Yeah, taking 200,000 in 5 to 6 years, there won't be any money, and the state's going to say, your tax rate's 115,000. That's all you can budget. That's what they did to us from the highway department. So I just want you to know something's going to have to give at some point. That's why I've always stressed that the health department always seems to take bills out of county general or out of the county health department fund instead of using their state money first. And that's why those balances keep building up, and we need this taking a little more out of those.
So
because
this year has changed. This year has changed. We
right,
have that change.
Except that now we've moved all salaries into the 1159. And in 5 years, when that money runs out, we either have to take salaries out of something else or cut somewhere, because the states, they made us cut $500,000 out of the highway budget a couple of years ago because our money was not there. So it was given council members a heads up and you a heads up. You know, we've got to, it's got to be, this has got to be looked at, because at some point that money will be gone.
Okay.
That extra $200,000 really helped, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's we've tried to build up accounts, but yeah, I did, you know. It's
so, Dr. Hessler, the other day when we talked, I know some of the things we talked about was what you'd like to do in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about Fountain County cancer rate.
Yes, sir.
Also talked about you wanted to do some not experimentation, but some work with water, Fountain County.
Potentially testing with possibly a joint project with Soil and Water, possibly on our own. We were kind of waiting until we saw how everything settled in with the budget here as to what the scope of that would be. Obviously, you guys are all aware of Fountain County being #1 in cancer this last year when the state released those. So we're trying to kind of rule out any environmental causes, as well as obviously address lifestyle issues that we can modify, that sort of thing. So, yeah, I mean, there may be some well water testing programs that come out. I've talked to Lori Jordan a little bit about that. Obviously, Jenny's been involved in that conversation. We want to be prepared to at least address those depending on kind of where the budget goes and where sort of what latitude we have for this next year to address those. So same thing with radon. We're looking at actually we just got some sample test kits in the other day, and we're looking at that because Indiana or in Fountain County, we sit in kind of a pocket of the highest levels of radon. So that could contribute, especially to the lung cancer cases that do exist here, both in smokers and non-smokers.
Well, I think the email that you sent us is a good outline of what you offer, what you do, and what you would like to do in the future with the health department and the county as a whole. So I appreciate your time and effort in putting that together, because it gives us a concise overview of what's going on. And I appreciate that. And I can't speak for everybody else, but I appreciate that.
I'll be totally honest, when I agreed to take this job, I probably did not have an understanding of the number of health needs that were in our community. And as we've talked, there are more than what I probably ever realized in my silo as an anesthesiologist. And here in our community, when I branched out and got into public health this last year and a half, it's been eye-opening. So, and then the state numbers coming out in July or August when that was introduced to us, and we found out that we're number one. That's not a category we want to be number one in, and I'd like to rectify that as best we can here over the next few years. I think it's gonna be a long game. I mean, we're not going to fix this, especially when you look at metrics like the cancer rankings that look from 2016 to 2020. That's you're looking back, and so we obviously have to know that it's going to take probably 5 years or more to move that needle. The question is just how aggressively would you like for us to try to move that needle for the county? My goal would be within a few years, by 2030, I would love to have us out of the top 10 for cancer, because that would kind of start catching the look back of my tenure now in the position here, and some of the programs hopefully we can all kind of work together to implement. But also I'd like to get us out of some of the bottom 20 for obesity lifespan. I mean, we're about 2 years lower life expectancy than the state average, and obesity we're in basically the bottom 10, and smoking we're low, and obviously that probably correlates also with cancer. I mean, all those statistics both on health rankings and cancer probably go hand in hand, but that would be my goal. I had no idea that those were going to be problems when I agreed to take the position, but now I own them, and I'm going to try to do my best to try to solve those with kind of the direction that you guys want me to go, so with funding and everything. So
one of the other things we talked about the other day, of course, I hesitated on some of your thoughts because I thought how we could use that. How are we going to get this information out in Fountain County? We have an ambulance department back here, and we have schools that teach health. How can we get this information out that we're going to find to our people? How do we do that?
That's a good question, Tom. I mean, we have a Facebook account. We've put up a few limited billboards that came through an immunization grant that were immunization specific. We haven't used those towards anything cancer or other related things, but a lot of people are on social media, but trying to build that up. I just attended the public health officer boot camp a couple months ago, and there was a expert there from the state she deals in social media. So I had a brief conversation with her. I'd like to be able to help Marcy get paired up with her and get trained on how to expand that. I mean, I'm not a big social media guy, but a lot of people in our county are. And so, that's essentially free advertising at this point in time. Getting the word out is one of the problems, but also doing it in a way that does not cast the county in a bad light is also part of my goal. So I don't want to do it in a way that negatively impacts the county. I want to present facts and also solutions. And so that's kind of where, again, with the report, it was, yes, these are the facts. This is what the state told us, but these are how I think we can address these and probably try to, have both a short-term and a long-term plan. I think one of the other programs that we've done that has saved lives is definitely the heart and lung and AAA scan. I don't know if any of you saw the statistics that I sent out, but about 30% of the people who have had a scan have had some kind of finding on there that's been potentially life-saving. And we've scanned less than 100 people. It's available for anybody, but it just, not that many people have taken advantage of it yet. But, you look at those numbers and you think, if that was countywide, how many lives will we have saved with that? So how do you get the message out to folks that that's a program that's available? How do you get the message out about, smoking cessation? I don't know. I mean, we're in the early stages of that for sure, of the messaging. We've talked to Purdue also. They offer a lot of free services now that we opted into HFI. And I had a conversation with Jenny maybe a month ago with couple of folks from Purdue, and then she just had a follow-up this last week. And they will help with some of that. Trying to kind of navigate the resources that we now have under HFI has kind of been part of the last few months. Both my job, Jenny's job, we're trying to kind of figure out what resources we can have to message, as well as to advance care. So
I know you and I had talked about even possibly doing mobile mammographies hopefully that can come to fruition, just like this happened for the county.
A radiologist contact of mine who is partnered with this MMS that's out of Indianapolis, one of the organizations I mentioned in here. I just found out a week ago that they have a mobile mammography unit. We've been looking for a mobile unit. We found some other options where people can drive to Crawfordsville, Lafayette, and we're trying to kind of put some things in play there for low cost or no cost things and everything. But I just found out that they have a mobile unit, and I'm trying to convince him to lean on his board to be able to start including Fountain County and maybe one event a year or something like that, where we could get it out where people could stay in county and have their screenings and stuff. So I can't promise that that will happen, but I'm working on that right now, kind of as we speak. So
the Mill Creek watershed and the Shawnee watershed, Lori's working on that. I'm on the steering committee for the Mill Creek in the southern part of the county, and I've seen statistics on phosphorus, potassium, nitrates, manure, pesticides in these waters going into the river, and it's high. And so it concerned, McKee and I were talking about cancer rates, and I just think it's a lot to do for water. And I'm glad to hear you might test wells. I think municipalities already test. Every municipality that has, and they do a good job of testing, but in the outskirts, that concerns me. I mean, they talk about.
I know you and I've had that discussion before, Jeff, and obviously it's very personal for both of us when it comes to that, with both of our families. But yes, I think it's one of the things we at least need to check that box, and it may come back. I hope that it comes back, that these well tests come back pristine. I don't want there to be a positive finding. But I do want to check the box in case there is. I feel like we have the obligation to at least look into that, turn that rock over.
Yeah.
So same thing with radon testing. I hope everybody comes back and their homes are fine.
Yes.
Thank you very much for having us. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Colleen, anything else? Anybody have any public comments from meeting today? Who's that?
Andrew from.
Andrew, you have anything?
She's calling you out, Andrew.
Not really. We're testing water with Eagle County on some holes right now. We have 10 of their inmates. So they're overcrowded already. As you know, they just built a brand new facility and opened it up in like April this year, and they're already overcrowded. So that's right. The sheriff tried telling them before they opened that it's not going to be big enough. They didn't listen, so now they're going to be adding on to their brand new jail. So we have 10, but here within the next week or two, we plan on getting another 10 because they've been good so far. So other than that, they started on the sewer chewer. Not really sure what they're doing. They dug a big hole. I haven't been over there to really investigate, but go ahead.
No, I was going to go back. Your concern with Vigo is the type of inmates you're going to get. That's why you say you're testing the water.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I wanted to clarify
Park
that.
County held for them before they built their new jail, and they had one block specifically for Vigo holds.
Yeah.
And they destroyed the cell. Cost them $20,000 to redo that cell block. So,
And who pays for that?
Where Park County paid for that.
Okay.
So with the money they made off of them,
So they didn't really make it.
They didn't make
go
it.
back and
Okay. I apologize. I thought you were done with the grinder thing. Sorry.
Oh, no. They said they were going to have the building up first. So I don't know. As far as I know, they haven't even started building the building. So I don't think a year.
I think Roger said they poured the foundation.
Is that what they were doing? There was a concrete truck in there. They must
Yeah.
have poured the footers or something on it, but
They haven't dug in the parking lot yet, though, right?
no, they have not done anything over there. Okay. So, all of our new vehicles are now on the road. So we're good to go there. We have a couple extra
cool cars now. They're reliable, and thank you all for doing that for us.
What's it total?
That worked
How many
out
people
good.
you have in the jail? Total,
Uh,
men and women, you have any idea?
65, 64, actually, 64, yeah. That's 64 in there.
What's your capacity?
112.
112.
112, but 100 in the back, the population, Gen Pop, it's 100. And 12 up front, which we're back to regular status on holding up front. We're not on COVID status where we can hold people there for an extended period anymore. It's 48 hours up front, and they got to be moved to the back.
Yeah.
So back to
We went through that when we were building the jail. He thought 40 would be enough. And he came back, oh, we better build it for 80. And look where we are today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Andrew.
Research being done on cancer, like where it's, I mean, Jeff said that he feels safe that the water is being tested in cities. Where are the patients usually? Has any research been done on anything like that?
Cities versus rural.
Pardon me?
Cities versus rural.
Their location in Count Five, like is there a map that shows hotspots?
Dr. Hessler can answer that.
I think, you know, when we got the statistics, it was in July. The state sent these out. It was the first time that the state had ever actually gotten granular and broken down cancer rankings county by county. And they issued them. The other problem with that, though, is so we don't have a trend to look at. You know, is this an isolated 1 year statistical blip? Is it not? The other statistical variable is that you're looking back from the window of 2016 to 2020. So there's a lot of old history, but you know, that's hard to have actionable things when, you know, you're talking almost 10 years from the time that data started. So I immediately, I got the email when we were actually coming back from taking my son to Holiday World for his birthday. I remember that, and my wife was driving. So I'm sitting there kind of on my phone immediately, kind of doing some work. First thing was to reach out to the state cancer epidemiologist. I have talked to them extensively, so a couple of things. One is it's fairly well distributed by zip code, because that was the first thing you look at. Is it like concentrated in like Attica, Covington, you know, Wallace, Kingman, whatever? Because then you start worrying about cluster by geography, right? So wells or any other things that could go, you know, chemical spills, whatever, you know, and stuff like that. You don't know. The other thing is by cancer type. So I can actually, I've got a book here. Let me, I can just give you the statistics if you want, so that it makes it a little easier, but, okay. We were number 1 in overall incidence, number 2 in mortality for this 2016 to 2020 period. Breast cancer, colon cancer, lung cancer, prostate cancer, kidney cancer, leukemias, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, oral and head and neck cancers, pancreatic cancer, thyroid cancer, uterine cancer, esophageal cancer, melanoma, stomach cancer, and bladder cancer were the ones that we were top 20 in either incidence or mortality, basically. So, you know, whether you just have a case or whether you pass away from it. So, the ones that kind of concerned me more were the ones where we had a disproportionate a skewing of the mortality to incident ratio. So more people were dying than statistically should for the number of incidents that we had. So breast cancer was one, prostate was another, leukemia, oral cancers, uterine, melanoma, stomach, and bladder cancers. You know, and that's why we talked about some of the things that I've discussed with the council and the commissioner is getting better access to preventative care, screening tests, those kind of things, tobacco cessation, because there's a lot of these that can be potentially preventable. At least the death from the cancer can be preventable with proper screenings, things like breast cancer mammography. I mean, that's one that Kelly and I talked pretty extensively about. You know, oral cancer, just good dental care, tobacco cessation from almost all of these would make a difference in those. Melanomas, you know, obviously some skin checks and those kind of things. So I think those are probably for us the low-hanging fruit that I want to go after most, because those are the things that we potentially can save the most lives, because we know that there are proven detection methods to be able to try to detect these cancers early, treat them when they're early, when the lives are savable, rather than later on when it's advanced stage cancer and they're not treatable. So I've looked at it by age, I've looked at it by zip code, I've looked at it by types of cancers, and none of those that the state has analyzed for us can call it a cancer cluster anywhere. Now, I'm not ready to give up on that and just push that idea aside. Certainly, we've kind of looked at, like, you know, there's a lot of statistical variables in that make it really hard to get good solid data sometimes. So I kind of have to tease out those answers and stuff. The other thing was they broke this down by zip code, and we had like one zip code that extends up into Warren County and catches part of them. And Warren County had a lower cancer incidence, and they're pretty well demographically the same, and, you know, a lot of agriculture and factories and that stuff. So, and we share a river. So it really doesn't make a lot of sense, but we do catch a pretty good swing of kind of southern Warren County. We also catch a little bit of northern Park County with the Kingman zip code. The state says that they were able to tease it out by county of residence, but I'm not 100% convinced that that's the case, because they also said their methodology was zip codes, but we're stuck dealing with the data. I mean, I know that like a couple people that live, I mean, I'm in the very southeast corner of Fountain County down south of Wallace, and a couple of my neighbors have Crawfordsville addresses, so they technically probably would be exempt from that, but it's a very, very small portion of the county compared to the pickup that we have from Warren and Park. So I don't know if we disproportionately picked up a little of another county's incidence in our zip code. Regardless, I still do think these are cancers that need addressed, because even if you factor in the zip code thing, we're probably still top 20. And this is not something that I want Fountain County to be top 20, and if we can make a difference on it. So
the other thing too, Carol, is schools, the individual schools we have in the county, their water is checked. So it's checked for different chemicals and things like that, just like a municipality. I just wanted to know that.
And if you're talking about water testing, to what extent? Right now, if you take it over Crawfordville, all they do is bacterial.
And that's what I'm trying to get answers from the state on. Yeah, it's
phosphate and, and things like that.
But in municipalities and in schools, it's more all the other things.
Yeah. And I understand what Jeff's saying. Yes.
I would think if you dug a new well or, building a house, I would think that they would test, wouldn't they?
Just doing basically an E. coli coliform test, right? So perhaps Greg, you want to read on that. So
they do not test for wide spectrum.
Yeah.
The only places they test wide spectrums are, like they said, municipalities. I have to do it at the landfill. They check a big spectrum because they want to see the nitrates. They want to see all that and up and down. The main thing they're looking for in the rural houses and stuff is just bacteria from waste.
Yeah.
Human waste. That's the big
cost over $150 for your garage to test extend some.
Our tests for our water is about $2,500 each time.
I don't know if you know Eric Scheidler. Eric is the soil and water guy in Vermillion County.
I do.
And just in the last couple of years, they began doing some rural testing. So I think he might be a good resource to help.
I've talked with Lori a little bit about that. I've talked with Eric about other things, because I actually I have a passion for water quality. I also farm on my family's farm in my own ground, and I'm doing a lot of things with reduced tillage and cover crops and some of the things trying to filter through the water source I dump into Sugar Creek, because I'm right by shades and everything. So it's kind of a passion of mine, and so Jeff definitely didn't have to sell me on that. I did. He knows, but anyway, yes, water quality is a big thing. I do think we need to look at what's in our wells. It's kind of scattered throughout the county. One idea that Lori had was if she's looking at a couple funding sources, obviously a health department, it would be probably a combination effort with some of these HFI funds, would be you test on the same day, and you would test throughout the county, probably 3 or 4 or 5 wells, and get volunteers who are willing to have their well tested. And everybody would bring their samples to a specific drop off, or have one person kind of collect for the township of several people, each township getting their well tested, bringing that sort of to headquarters, all of that going to the state. So everyone can say on the same day, what are the eliminate as many variables as possible, get it straight out of the well source that hasn't been through a water softener, that kind of thing, or whatever. So I'm gonna have to kind of rely a little bit on what Lori and obviously her colleague Eric done in Vermilion County. You know, they obviously are more experts on that. Greg and I are actually we're talking. We're gonna go probably get together after this meeting here and chat a little bit too, because now that it came up, I think he's probably got some great ideas on that too. That I want to pick his brain on.
Sampling water is very sensitive. Whenever they come out, David Joe does our test sampling for us. You have to be. It's time sensitive and it's temperature sensitive. You gotta be careful how you handle it. And he signs it off, it's just not evidence. It has to sign off when he hands it to the laboratory, they sign back, it's all dated, who did what, and then it's tested. All his vials are pre-tested, sealed, he breaks the seal to put water in it. It's a process.
I didn't know how much of a process it was. And Tom, my brother, he's a water superintendent at Hillsborough, and it's amazing what he has to do to send a sample, and he can contaminate it by his hands.
That's right.
So that's a big deal.
Well, you and I talked about the situation with RMC and all that runoff coming from RMC down on that whole north end of Attica, and there are test wells out there just below on the north side of Summit Street that they're supposed to be checking those test wells, but the homes on the north end all have mitigation systems in their basements, and their basements are last year. And their basements are coated to keep that from being penetrating in through the soil.
Part of the process.
Yeah. And people used to swim. Jenny might remember that. People used to swim in that pond.
Yeah.
The retention pond that Harrison's that RMC put in. You know, we used to have Fourth of July parties, the employees, and I never swam in it. My mother would never let me, but we thought it was great because we could take a helicopter ride. That was one of the things that they did. But now that Kraft Corporation owns them, I think they're trying to make it right. So
well, they're working on it. It's in process.
Yeah.
The whole time I was there, which I've been going for about 8 years now, but I met with several doctors out at site because I did an investigation. Ed O'Farrell called me and he said, I've had word that there's stuff still there. And I said, well, we went up there and there was
55 gallon drums of this chemical
outside. I have pictures and everything of what we found inside there. The state came in and they started talking to Kraft. Kraft had just taken over and they worked on the process and everything. But at that time, they were concerned with the air and water all in that southern quadrant of southwest area and southern northern area there towards the river because it was all bad.
I don't know how you feel or what can potentially happen, but there's that soccer field right by the test wells.
They say that's been tested. They ran through it because I had the same feeling. How can you have a test well that's showing back and just the surface, but it's seeped down and in. It's not coming up.
I would
still work.
I know.
Just don't drink the water.
I was gonna say, in terms of cancer clusters, actually Attica was a little lower than a couple of the other zip codes. And because I specifically looked at that after being aware of what was going on up there. I didn't know about that when I said yes to being health officer 2 years ago, that was on, but it's gotten on my radar since then that's a site we need to be paying attention to. But I was surprised that, it was fairly evenly distributed amongst the different zip codes. If you actually break it down on a per capita basis, obviously the number of cases varies, but when you actually look at number of cancer incidents per capita, that it's surprisingly closer than what I thought. I was concerned, with some of the factories and stuff that we had, maybe it was something there or old factories or whatever, or any other contaminant, but nothing that I can wrap my head around to definitively say we got a problem at this one site.
Yeah, Attica's got 2 or 3 of those sites.
2 on the EPA list. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you for the information. Yeah, we appreciate it.
We can finally, after 2 months, I think we can have a motion to adjourn.
I have one more thing. Sorry. Where are we at on a proposal for ARPA funds? We're getting awful close to send that back.
We need to have a committee meeting.
We're gonna have to send that back. We don't get an answer quick.
They stressed that very thoroughly at conference this week.
There's some options, conference.
Not really, not anything more than we got from Dustin.
So the ARPA committee, is that you, Brendan and I? So what happens if we vote 2-1 on something, or
That's,
does it still then?
I would say, yes, would have.
Let's get a meeting scheduled.
Okay, schedule a meeting.
Yeah.
Sooner rather than later.
But like an invoice will do,
And we talked about the
Ambulances and the
so.
grader or dump truck.
the only
Those
tricky
big
part
ticket
is if you do payroll, you have to estimate it, and we just can't say, oh, it's gonna be $50,000.
Yeah.
We have, and it has to be a position that was created before.
But we got 2 places.
I think we've got enough of those big ticket items.
Yeah.
The big dump truck and ambulances or the grader. We already have an invoice for that grader for next year. I
Right.
mean, if we could use those things and then keep our general fund, but
Yeah.
And can we do a reimbursement on something that's already paid?
we found out, yes.
Okay, so we could do the ambulances back because we got the bills for those.
Yeah.
Dudley.
Carol.
Yeah.
It's been a long ride.
Yeah.
For 3 new people too.
Carol has a
Carol,
question.
you got another question?
Have we heard any more from Power Rangers, the tax abatement or anything like that?
I haven't heard anything, but I've been told they're doing work, but.
The whole.
No, not so far.
Thanks to Dudley.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Dudley. Thanks,
Thanks
council.
for everybody, your help on this budget.
Yeah, I know, but he knows what I mean.
Yeah.
It's the longest I've ever been involved in. This has been the longest.
Well,
But-
the reason being is that we had other things that we had to take care of that reflected in the budget, and so we had to get those taken care of.
Yeah.
So we could get this taken care
Hey,
of.
Tom, we haven't voted, we haven't got adjournment yet, you can't walk out. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I do.
Okay. Okay. Denise. Go in favor. Aye. Now you can go, Tom, let's adjourn. Thank you.
You get it.